On the day rent was due, I got a text from the tenant in 501. Chloe, you're a lifesaver. Seriously, forever grateful. I was a little confused. After waiting in the hallway all night, I saw my wife and the tenant walk out of Unit 501 side by side. Looking at my wife's smiling face, I suddenly felt sick to my stomach. So that's what he was so grateful for. My wife, Chloe, owns dozens of condos in this building, making her the most sought-after landlord in the complex. Collecting rent and checking on the properties usually takes her a full day each month. But yesterday was our 5th wedding anniversary. I had cooked a special dinner, her favorite braised short ribs, and was waiting for her to come home. I waited and waited, but she never showed. Instead, all I got was that one confusing text message. Chloe, you're a lifesaver. Seriously, forever grateful. So, she'd gone to deal with the rentals again. Except this time, it took her a day and a night. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I never would have believed my wife was cheating on me. And with a kid who looked like he'd just graduated from college. I collapsed onto the sofa, the rental ledgers for the last 6 months still in my hand. No wonder the books never balanced. Now I knew how he was paying his rent. When she finally came home, I smelled the thick scent of cigarette smoke on her clothes. She always said she hated the smell of smoke. In the 6 years we'd been together, I never once lit a cigarette in front of her. Even when we were out with my friends, the moment one of them pulled out a lighter, I'd stop them. Sorry guys, Chloe can't stand the smell. I didn't care if they all laughed at me for being whipped. I loved my wife, and it was my job to spoil her. But now, she was covered in the scent of another man. The acrid smell of his smoke made me want to gag. I slowly looked up at her. It was our anniversary yesterday. Where were you? Hearing the accusatory tone in my voice, Chloe bristled. Collecting rent? Where else? Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to manage all these properties? I looked at her face, still done up in perfect makeup. For a second, it felt like the woman I'd fallen in love with had become a stranger. What kind of rent collection keeps you out all night and makes you forget our anniversary? She had been casually picking up her coffee mug, but at my question, her brow furrowed. She set the mug down, her voice laced with annoyance. Ethan, don't start. Do you know how hard it is to chase down tenants? You don't contribute a dime to this household. If it weren't for my properties, you'd be out on the street. I held up the ledger and ran a finger down the column. You work so hard, yet the rent is short every single month. Is a tenant skipping out on you? Should I go take care of it? I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Her brow tightened. What are you talking about? All the rent is in. Why are you being so paranoid? She's finished, and I pressed on, my voice playful but sharp. For 6 months, it's been short by $500. Every single month. Is that really a coincidence? I had clearly struck a nerve. Her anger erupted. Are you even a man? Arguing with me all morning over a few $100s of petty cash. Will you just give a rest? If you're so worried about a few $100 here, I'll give it to you. God, you're so pathetic, you're driving me insane. She waved her hand dismissively, pulled a thick wad of cash from her purse, and threw it in my face. The $100 bills fluttered down in front of me like a rainstorm, soaking my pride. It's just an anniversary. We have more than enough money. We could celebrate it every day if you wanted. Something inside me finally snapped. I leaned forward from the sofa, picked up every last bill from the floor, and placed them neatly on the table in front of her. It took every ounce of strength I had to say the words. Chloe, you didn't just forget our anniversary. You cheated on me. My words stunned her. A faint blush crept across her cheeks. Her eyes darted around, refusing to meet mine, and the aggressive posture she'd held just moments ago deflated. Ethan, I was just busy collecting rent, and I lost track of time. It wasn't on purpose. You can ask any of the tenants. They'll all vouch for me. I ignored her explanation. It's the kid in 501, isn't it? He's good-looking, I'll give him that. All muscle. Your type. My words were a dagger, piercing straight through her charade. Her face went rigid, her eyes wide with panic. The only defense she had left was to raise her voice. What are you talking about? I was just collecting rent. How can you think something so disgusting? She shot up from her chair, pointing a finger at my nose, her voice rising to a shout. We've been married for 5 years. Can't you give me even a little bit of trust? I stared into her eyes. The panic and evasion I saw there were more convincing than any denial. After 5 years of marriage, I knew her as well as she knew herself. Her clumsy lies were like a thin veil, easily torn apart. Trust, haven't I given you enough? If I hadn't chosen to trust her unconditionally, to love her without reservation, how could I have been kept in the dark for 6 long months? Collecting rent all night long, I said flatly. You must have worked him pretty hard to cover his rent. I guess that's one way to make sure the books balance. I emphasized the word hard, my gaze filled with disappointment and contempt. My tone finally broke her. Ethan Miller, don't push your luck. I'm trying to talk to you nicely, but you just won't listen, will you? Let me tell you something. I've been married to you for 5 years. I'm up at the crack of dawn every day managing this empire to support us, while you just sit at home. You eat my food, you drink my wine, you use my money. What right do you have to talk to me like this? And you, instead of appreciating me, you accuse me. You ungrateful bastard. I've been too good to you lately. That's why you, a pathetic loser, think you can walk all over me. I'm not coming back for a while. You can stay here and think about what you've done. After her tirade, Chloe grabbed her phone, stepped into her heels, and stormed out of the apartment. In the past, whenever we fought, I was always the one to apologize first. No matter what happened, it was always my fault. I would have to beg for her forgiveness without any reservations. But this time my heart felt cold. In this entire sprawling city, I had no one but her. We were supposed to be the ones who could trust each other the most. For a moment, I remembered how we used to be. Years ago, she would nestle against me, promising we'd love each other forever. How did we end up like this? Had she forgotten how she got all these properties in the first place? 5 years ago, I wasn't so pathetic. I used to be a young man full of ideals, determined to use my own small strength to help as many people as I could. After having my own education paid for by a scholarship from a generous donor, I turned down high-paying job offers and chose to become a community outreach coordinator for a local nonprofit, determined to give back. That's how I met Mr. Anderson. He had no children, only a granddaughter he hadn't heard from in years. Life for a lonely old man is bleak enough, but Mr. Anderson was also notoriously cantankerous. Most outreach workers couldn't last a month with him, but I became like a second grandson to him. I'd sit with him for hours, talking, playing chess, and reading him the newspaper. When he fell ill, I barely left his side, caring for him, giving him medicine, and helping him wash. I was more patient and dedicated than I ever thought I could be. Maybe it was fate, or maybe heaven took pity on him, but I stumbled upon a lead to his granddaughter's whereabouts. After some searching, I finally found her and brought her back to him. Chloe. She was as bright and captivating as her name suggested. A ray of light that illuminated Mr. Anderson's final days. I just never expected that light would shine on me, too. While caring for her grandfather together, we fell in love. On our wedding day, Mr. Anderson held my hand, tears streaming down his wrinkled face. Ethan, he said, his voice thick with emotion, the best thing that ever happened to me was meeting you. I'm leaving Chloe in your hands. You have to take good care of her. I nodded solemnly, making the most important promise of my life. It was only after he passed that I learned he was a well-known real estate owner in Seattle, with countless properties to his name. His will contained a single, crucial stipulation. Chloe, as his sole heir, had to be married to me to inherit his entire estate. The first few years of our marriage were happy. I took care of Chloe just as I always had, indulging her moods and satisfying her whims. But slowly, I noticed a change in her. She stopped being the playful girl who would cuddle up to me and share every detail of her day. She became materialistic, obsessed with designer bags and luxury goods. She dressed to the nines every day, frequenting high-end restaurants and exclusive clubs. Once, when I gently questioned her spending, she shot me a dismissive look. What do you know? A woman should treat herself. I'm a multi-millionaire landlord now. You expect me to keep pinching pennies like before. I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. And you should quit that thankless job of yours, she'd added. What can you possibly do with that tiny salary? I need you with me, not spending your time with a bunch of random old people. Without my knowledge, Chloe submitted my resignation for me. She said my job was undignified. I loved her, so I gave in. I became a stay-at-home husband, the man behind the successful woman. I was like a canary in a gilded cage she had built. Every day, I cooked, cleaned, and waited for her to come home. Then I'd have to listen to her brag about how much rent she collected, which wealthy CEO she'd met, what big deal she'd closed, or what new investment she'd made. In her eyes, I had become an insignificant accessory, an embarrassing secret she kept at home. I finally understood that the gap between us had grown into a chasm. I loved her enough to give up everything, including my dignity, and she had gotten so used to my sacrifices that she had started to trample on them. Love, I realized, always has an expiration date. And if the love is gone, what's the point of holding on to the marriage? I call my buddy, Mark, who's a lawyer. Hey man, I need to ask you about getting a divorce. What Chloe didn't know was that I had seen her grandfather's will. There was one more sentence at the very end. It read, "In the event of a divorce, all properties shall be transferred to Ethan Miller." Chloe hadn't been home in days. I didn't bother looking for her. I was enjoying the peace and quiet. The Nest camera in the hallway showed her going to and from Unit 501 multiple times. I closed my eyes. A young, fit body is always more tempting than a worn-out husband, I guess. The next time I saw her was at the annual HOA mixer held in the community clubhouse. Normally, a busy person like Chloe scoffed at these kind of neighborhood events. So Mrs. Garcia from the HOA board had given the invitation to me. I had no idea why Chloe decided to show up this time, or why she brought her pretty boy tenant from 501 with her. Well, Ethan, you're not a homeowner. What are you doing here? The moment Chloe saw me, she put on an air of superiority, as if I were a vagrant who had wandered into a private party. I saw right through her little game. She just wanted to put me down in front of her new boy toy to show off. What am I doing here? I shot back with a smirk. A better question is, what's he doing here? Is he on the catering staff? My comeback left her speechless, her face clouding over. I ignored her, but the pretty boy, after a brief moment of shock, stepped forward with a smarmy grin. Hi, I'm Caleb. I'm the tenant representative for the building, so I think I have more right to be here than some people. I almost laughed out loud. A tenant representative? Is that what they were calling it these days? Tenant representative. Have you ever even paid rent, and you're representing people? I raised my voice, looking around. Just as I'd hoped, I had drawn the attention of several onlookers. Seeing me embarrass her in public, Chloe's face turned pale with rage. She shot me a death glare, grabbed Caleb by the arm, and pulled him into the crowd. Caleb didn't seem fazed. He leaned in and whispered to Chloe, loud enough for me to hear. So that's the kept husband you were telling me about? He's not much to look at. What did you ever see in him? I heard it all. Chloe expected me to get angry, to storm over and defend myself. But I said nothing. I just took a seat in the corner and watched. Halfway through the party, Caleb was at Chloe's side, glass in hand, the two of them schmoozing with the other homeowners, laughing and chatting as if they were the happy couple. The gentle, caring girl who had looked after her grandfather with me was gone, replaced by this cold, unrecognizable stranger. It was time for a new man to stand by her side. I took a deep breath, walked over to Chloe, and said coldly, "Let's get a divorce." My voice wasn't loud, but it landed like a bomb in the middle of the room. The chatter stopped. Everyone turned to stare at us. Chloe clearly hadn't expected me to bring it up in front of everyone. Her face went white. "Ethan, it's bad enough you act like this at home, but in front of all these people, don't you have any shame?" Mr. Davis, the portly HOA president, hurried over to play peacemaker. He glanced at me, then at Chloe, and chuckled nervously. "Come on, you two. Just a little disagreement. Every couple has them. Nothing you can't sort out. Ethan, you shouldn't throw the D word around over a small tiff. It's not fair to your wife." I let out a cold laugh. How are we supposed to sort it out when she's sleeping in someone else's apartment? A collective gasp went through the room, followed by a flurry of whispers. Chloe's face was ashen, but she was speechless. The boy toy, Caleb, however, stepped up fearlessly. "Every apartment in this building belongs to Chloe," he said defiantly. "She can stay in whichever one she wants. What's so strange about that?" Mr. Davis quickly chimed in. Exactly. This is a private matter between a husband and wife. Ethan, why don't you stop making a scene and go on home?" Others joined the chorus, admonishing me for not trusting my wife, for overreacting, for not knowing how good I had it. They were all homeowners in the complex. They'd all benefited from Chloe's generosity at one point or another, so of course, they took her side. I guess in their eyes, landing a multimillionaire landlord was like winning the lottery. You get to skip 10 years of hard work. To them, me asking for a divorce meant I had to be insane. I looked at the sea of disingenuous faces around me and couldn't help but laugh. They all acted as if they were on the side of justice. Chloe watched me, a smug look on her face. Ethan, if you beg me right now, I'll pretend I didn't hear what you just said. Chloe, I'm not your pet. I don't have to listen to a word you say. You're impossible. She clearly thought I was just throwing a tantrum. After all, in her mind, I was the one benefiting from our arrangement. If you keep this up, I'm going through with a divorce. Fine, I'm keeping this up. A sad smile touched my lips. I picked up a glass of red wine and held it high. The first toast I announced is to Mr. Anderson. Thank you for bringing us together. I raised my glass to the empty air and drank it in one go. The second toast is to my wife, Chloe, the girl who wasn't yet corrupted by money or tempted by fame. The simple, kind girl I fell in love with. I downed another glass. The sharp burn of the alcohol seared my throat. They say alcohol gives you courage. I'm allergic to it, but at that moment, I didn't care. Red blotches were already starting to appear on my face, growing warmer and itchier by the second. I glanced at Chloe. For a fleeting moment, I saw a flicker of concern in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by a look of pure disgust. She knew about my allergy. I once accidentally ate a piece of liquor-filled chocolate, and the reaction was so severe I could barely breathe. Back then, Chloe had rushed me to the hospital in tears, begging the doctors to save me. Doctor, he's everything to me, he can't. Please, you have to save him. In that moment, her world had revolved around me. Now I could feel my throat tightening, but she just stood there. And next to her stood her boy toy tenant. Fighting through the discomfort, I poured a third glass. And the third toast. To hell with this damn love. Without a moment's hesitation, I flung the third glass of wine directly at Caleb. The red liquid cut a perfect arc through the air. But Chloe reacted in a flash, throwing herself in front of Caleb to shield him. The dark red wine streamed down her face. This is between us, she hissed. Don't you dare drag Caleb into it. Perfect. Just perfect. I let out a weak, powerless laugh. My vision swam, and the world went black as I collapsed. The room erupted into chaos. Quick, someone call 911. The next day, I was the talk of the entire community. The stories spreading were wild and varied. The most ridiculous version was this. The new boy toy is trying to push out the old kept husband, and the old kept husband got desperate. Afraid of losing his meal ticket, he tried to kill himself to guilt her into staying. People will believe anything. If suicide actually worked, hearts would never change. Once the love is gone, you could die at their feet and they wouldn't care. Just like now. I've been lying in a hospital bed for 2 days, and Chloe hadn't even bothered to visit. When it was time to be discharged, I realized I didn't have any cash on me. I opened my banking app, only to find all my cards had been frozen. Chloe wanted me to surrender. She wanted me to beg, but I wouldn't. In the end, she sent Caleb to bail me out. You're a grown man, still throwing tantrums at Chloe, he said with a condescending smirk. She's being the bigger person by sending me here to help you. You should be grateful. What do you know? I shook my head, partly at his foolishness and partly at my own. You think you know Chloe? You think you can replace me? You're so young. You're willing to sleep with a woman 10 years older than you just to get out of paying rent. Don't you have any self-respect? Self-respect, he scoffed. Are you any better? You've been living off a woman's money without a shred of guilt. If I play my cards right, I won't just get free rent. I could get the whole building. Besides, Chloe is gorgeous. I'd call this a pretty smart investment. Well, at least you're honest about it, I said. You make being a homewrecker sound almost admirable. It was pathetic. The love I gave her, she treated like garbage. But this parasite who was feeding off her wealth, she defended him like a lioness. Without me, no one would ever love her the way I did. Hey, kid, got a cigarette? Caleb looked surprised, but quickly pulled a cigarette from his pocket and handed it to me, even lighting it for me. Chloe told me you don't smoke. Said you weren't manly enough. Yeah, well, I said, taking a drag. It's the kind of thing you can pick up whenever you want. The smoke filled my lungs, and I broke into a violent coughing fit. It had been too long. I'd forgotten the taste of nicotine. It was time to make a few changes. I went back to the home we had shared. I picked up the ridiculous cartoon print apron from its hook and tied it around my waist. Chloe had bought it for me once when we were out shopping, saying I looked cute when I cooked. I had learned the recipes from a popular show on the Food Network: gourmet mac and cheese, red wine-braised short ribs, molten chocolate lava cakes. The celebrity chefs swore by them. They had to be good. By the time Chloe came home, the mac and cheese had gone cold and stodgy. She walked in with a hint of apology in her eyes, but when she saw the elaborate meal I had prepared, she assumed I was trying to make up. That familiar, arrogant look immediately returned to her face. You should have called if you were going to cook. I already ate. You ate. That's a shame. I learned these frame by frame from the TV show. The colors, the aroma. I picked up a forkful. I don't know if it was because it was cold or because I hadn't followed the recipe correctly, but it tasted bland. When food gets cold, it's not good anymore, she said, completely missing the point. If you had shown this attitude earlier, I wouldn't have treated you that way. Look at the mess you've made. I've become a laughingstock. She spoke as if she held all the cards. You're right. When food gets cold, you have to throw it out. Just like our love, Chloe. This is the last meal I'll ever make for you. I pulled a folded document from my pocket and placed it on the table in front of her. These are divorce papers. You can have all the liquid cash, but the properties are mine. What? Ethan, have you lost your mind? She slammed her hand on the table, shot up from her chair, and pointed at my nose. Don't you dare forget where you came from. You eat my food, were the clothes I buy you, and now you want to take my entire inheritance. Faced with her fury, I felt a strange sense of calm. A sarcastic smile played on my lips. Chloe, you're the one who forgot. Did you really think destroying your grandfather's will meant no one would ever find out? It was right there in black and white. If we divorce, the properties go to me. I burned it. How could you possibly know? Chloe's face went pale, her arrogant facade crumbling in an instant. I've already spoken to the lawyer who drafted the will. Did you know law firms keep copies of everything on file? You can't run from this. My voice was ice cold, leaving no room for negotiation. Ethan, we don't have to do this. I had a moment of weakness, but I still love you. She pleaded with me, grabbing my hand, trying to pull me into an embrace. I gently pushed her away. I'd been willing to live this way because I truly loved her, not because I ever wanted her money. She was only sorry now because she was about to lose it all. You can keep this apartment. That's my final offer. I'm moving out today. If you don't sign these papers, my lawyer will be in touch. I'll see you in court. With that, I packed a bag with a few changes of clothes and walked out without looking back. I went to my friend Mark's place to crash. He had become a pretty successful lawyer, and I had already asked him to handle my divorce case. So, you finally done with that dragon lady? Mark asked as he opened the door, a teasing grin on his face, but genuine concern in his eyes. Yeah, it's all on you now, buddy. I walked in and collapsed onto his plush sofa, letting out a long, heavy sigh. Mark handed me a cigarette and raised an eyebrow. Want one? I glanced at him and took it without a word. That's more like it. Mark clapped me on the back, looking at me like a proud father whose son had finally come to his senses. Letting a woman tell you that you can't even smoke with your friends. That was ridiculous. I told you back then, man. Don't let that woman wrap you around her little finger. But you wouldn't listen. Well, looks like you finally won around. Chloe is going to be crying her eyes out. I gave him a tired smile. It's not over yet. She's not going to sign anything. The legal battle hasn't even started. Mark waved his hand dismissively. Hey, it's me. Have I ever let you down? After you called me last time, I did a little digging on her. And that little boy toy. He's not the first one, my friend. Not by a long shot. You're him, man. It's a whole forest up there. I felt a pit in my stomach. I looked at him in disbelief. Are you serious? Dead serious. Check this out. Mark handed me a thick file. Hotel receipts, credit card statements. That Caleb kid is just the one she's stuck with the longest. I flipped through the dozens of pages he'd printed out, my heart sinking with each one. While I was trusting her completely, loving her with everything I had, she was on dating apps, meeting up with an endless parade of young guys. She definitely had a type. All of them were tanned, muscular, and looked like they lived at the gym. No wonder she was never interested whenever I brought up the idea of having a baby. She was getting her fill elsewhere, so she was never hungry at home. Chloe, what the hell did money do to you? Seeing the color drain from my face, Mark tried to reassure me. Hey, with all this, plus the original will, don't worry. There's no way you're going to lose this case. Before he could finish, my phone started ringing. The name Chloe flashed on the screen. I hesitated for a moment before answering. Ethan, I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please come back. I swear, I, Chloe Anderson, will only ever love you. Her hysterical sobs echoed through the phone. I listened in silence for a moment, then hung up. In the past, if she had cried and begged like that, my heart would have melted. But now, all our memories together played back in my mind like a silent film, a fairy tale that had long since ended. The beginning of love is always beautiful, but the ending leaves you black and blue. Mark patted my shoulder. Don't feel bad, man. Come on, let's go out. I'll take you somewhere to clear your head. It's a celebration. I know just the place. I just lay there on the sofa, exhausted. Where are we going? You'll see when we get there, Mark said with a mysterious grin. I guarantee you'll forget all about that woman. Mark took me to a Seattle Tech Innovators Mixer. It was less of a forum and more of an exclusive networking event, held in a sleek downtown high-rise. The place was filled with tech elites discussing cutting-edge concepts like AI, blockchain, and the metaverse. It was all going over my head. So, pretty impressive, right? Mark asked, looking proud. It's impressive, yeah, but it doesn't really feel like my world anymore. I said with a bitter smile, right now, I'm just a loser whose wife cheated on him. I don't have the energy for any of this high-tech stuff. Mark shot me a look of disappointment. Dude, don't be like that. You were the top student in our computer science program back in college. If you hadn't wasted the last few years, you could have been one of these tech moguls by now. His words hit me like a bolt of lightning, cutting through the fog of my despair. He was right. I could have had a completely different life. I came from a low-income family in the rural part of the state. I got through college on scholarships and aid from people who believed in me. I was passionate about public service, but I was also passionate about coding. My plan back when I started the nonprofit was to learn the ropes of the system so I could build a user-friendly app to connect people in need with resources. All these years later, that field was still wide open. Technology could be used to help so many people. Why not me? Mark's spare room became my new office. I started digging up my old coding projects, dusting off skills that had grown rusty with disuse. I started with the basics, tapping out line after line of code. My brain felt like a machine that had been dormant for years, slowly humming back to life. That long-lost feeling of excitement and accomplishment was intoxicating. I became completely engrossed, losing all track of time. Mark was right. Instead of drowning in the pain of the past, it was time to look to the future and build something of my own. When I showed the prototype of my app to Mark, he was floored. You did this? By yourself? Dude, you're a genius. Do you know how many people it usually takes to develop an app? You need coders, UI designers, testers. And you did all this on your own. You're a natural. I brushed off his compliments and kept working. Chloe started calling me constantly, dozens of times a day. Her tactics shifted from tearful apologies and confessions of love to threats and lavish promises. At first, I would pick up. Eventually, I just blocked her number. She asked my friends where I was, but they all covered for me. It was almost funny. In this entire city, I only had a handful of friends, and she had never bothered to get to know any of them. It was just more proof that she had never really cared about my life. 2 months later, my app was ready for beta testing. I called it Beacon. I put up flyers around the condo building, offering to help seniors and kids with their tech problems for free. Things like navigating their smartphones, shopping online, or fixing home electronics. At first, people were skeptical. But after I helped Mrs. Henderson fix the vintage radio she'd had for over 20 years, word started to spread, and my little business took off. Young man, you're such a kind soul, Mrs. Henderson said, squeezing my hand, her old eyes shining with tears. Not like the kids these days, only thinking about making a quick buck. It's my pleasure, Mrs. Henderson, I said with a smile. If you ever need anything else, just give me a call. Her words solidified my resolve. I was going to use my skills to bring hope and help to as many people as I could. I ran into Chloe while I was out promoting the app. She was at the farmer's market with Caleb, who had his arm possessively around her waist. Great. While I was gone, they'd started playing house. I watched their sickeningly sweet display from a distance. When her eyes met mine, she jumped as if she'd been electrocuted, violently shaking off Caleb's hand. Sir, please have some self-respect, she shrieked at Caleb, her voice sharp enough to cut through the market noise. Stop touching me. I'm a married woman, and I love my husband very much. She sounded like a paragon of virtue. Caleb looked completely blindsided, his face turning shades of red and white. He looked like he'd just swallowed a fly. The shoppers around us, mostly older folks, turned to stare, looking for all the world like they were ready to pull up chairs and watch the show. I smirked. This was getting interesting. Before I could say a word, Chloe sashayed toward me, her hips swinging. Two perfect tear streaks ran down her meticulously made-up face. Ethan, please come back, she cried, her voice breaking. We can make it work. I really can't live without you. She sobbed and pleaded, looking so pitiful that anyone who didn't know the story would have thought I was the villain who had broken her heart. I almost burst out laughing. This woman was a drama queen of the highest order. Was she only remembering her loving husband now that dozens of condos were about to slip through her fingers? Too little, too late. Chloe, stop the act. Aren't you exhausted? I said, my face a mask of indifference. Ethan, how can you say that? You've always been the one in my heart. Enough. I cut through her lies. If you really loved me, you wouldn't have been hooking up with other men behind my back. A crowd was gathering. I could hear people whispering. She looks so put together. Who knew she was such a tramp? And that poor man, cheated on and then made to look like the bad guy. Hearing the whispers, Chloe's face grew even paler. Realizing she had completely lost control of the situation, she did something drastic. She lunged for a fruit stand, grabbed a paring knife, and held it to her own throat. Ethan, if you won't forgive me, I'll die right here in front of you. I watched the whole scene unfold, feeling nothing but cold, detached amusement. The crowd gasped, shocked by the sudden turn of events. Is this woman crazy? She's going to kill herself over a man? And he's just standing there, what a heartless jerk. Listening to the crowd, I couldn't help but think back to the last time I was the center of public drama. What would the gossip be this time? Millionaire landlord sees the error of her ways, tries to win back husband with public suicide attempt. What a pathetic soap opera. The whispers from the onlookers grew louder. Look over there, that's the boy toy. No shame at all. A good-looking young man like that, destroying a family instead of getting a real job. I ignored the peanut gallery and turned to Caleb, a mocking smile on my face. Because of you, Chloe's about to lose dozens of condos. Dozens? Do you have any idea how much money that is? And you thought you were going to hit the jackpot with her? Keep dreaming, kid. Whether it was because my words hit their mark, or because he couldn't stand the judgmental stares from the crowd, Caleb's head snapped up. His eyes were wide with shock and disbelief. He grabbed Chloe's arm, his grip so tight it looked like he might break it. Stop embarrassing yourself, Chloe. No, Caleb. You don't understand. You don't understand. Chloe was becoming hysterical, but Caleb had clearly put the pieces together. Is it true what he's saying? Are you really going to lose everything? Caleb's voice trembled with a terrifying rage. Startled by his sudden aggression, the knife slipped from Chloe's hand and clattered onto the pavement. She quickly recovered and threw herself into his arms, crying pitifully. Caleb, don't listen to him. He's just trying to turn us against each other. How could I possibly lose everything? And what about that Ferrari you promised me? Caleb shoved her away, his eyes blazing with the fury of a man who's been scammed. You were lying to me this whole time. The crowd erupted in laughter, pointing and jeering. Caleb shot her one last look of pure disgust, then turned and stormed away without a backward glance, leaving Chloe standing alone in the middle of the market, a broken doll abandoned by its owner. I watched it all, feeling nothing. How was the show? I asked, walking up to her and looking down at her pathetic form. Chloe's head snapped up, her eyes filled with venom. Why would you do this? She spat. Do what? I asked, raising an eyebrow in mock surprise. I just told the truth. You're the one who got greedy. You have no one to blame but yourself. You. Chloe trembled with rage, utterly speechless. I was done wasting my breath on her. I turned and walked away, the crowd parting before me like the Red Sea. I don't know if the public drama created some buzz, but when I went out to promote my app after that, I suddenly had a lot of new followers. I figured any publicity was good publicity. Soon after, we had our day in court. The divorce was much smoother than I had anticipated. No matter how much of a scene Chloe made, the evidence and the will were irrefutable. There was nothing she could do. Aside from the condo she was living in, all the other properties were transferred to me. I was now the biggest landlord in the complex. The same people who used to point and whisper about the kept husband were now greeting me with respectful nods. A few of the bolder ones even tried to set me up with their daughters. As for Chloe, I heard Caleb blackmailed her for a significant amount of money, threatening to sue her for sexual harassment. She ended up selling her condo and moving out of the city in disgrace. Sometimes I think about her, but it's like remembering a character from a story I once read. There's no emotion left. What truly excites me now is my app. Beacon's user base has surpassed 10,000 registered members. It's even attracted the attention of a venture capital firm. I secured a round of funding, started my own company, and hired a team of programmers to help me expand the platform. Once the company was established, I said goodbye to my old, pathetic life for good. Money started flowing in, more than I'd ever imagined. But I promised myself I would never lose my way like Chloe did. I turned down invitations to the endless parties and extravagant lifestyle of the city's elite and poured my energy back into public service. I wanted to help more people find their way out of the darkness. Perhaps as a reward from the universe, at the age of 35, I finally met my match. I never would have guessed that the most successful female CEO in Seattle would also be one of Beacon's most loyal users.